As night blanketed the coast and the fog rolled in from the black Irish Sea, Lady Isabella cradled her swollen belly as sweat trailed down her face and her body writhed in pain. The midwife beckoned her back to bed, but restless Isabella paced across the room, the stones cool beneath her feet, the movement a tonic for the endless pressure and pain that was pushing down on her pelvis. She felt like a foreigner in her own body, the pain and adrenaline crashing over her in sickening waves as the sea outside lashed mercilessly at the powdery sand below her window. As she ambled across the room, she muttered a continuous prayer.
Please, Lord, let it be a boy. Let it be an heir, a healthy, strong namesake, the future of the family.
As another crippling contraction racked her small frame, Lady Isabella was forced into the birthing chair as the warm glow of the candlelight bathed the room in a soft golden glow. After a seemingly endless fight with gravity, Isabella sunk into the chair as the midwife swaddled up a screaming babe, bloody, blush, and robust.
Is it a boy?
Lady Isabella questioned in a weak, thin voice. The room was silent, other than the child who was heartily announcing their arrival.
Is it a boy?
Isabella pressed. More screams, no talking.
Is it?
It is a perfect baby girl,
the midwife replied as she placed a cotton bundle of baby in the new mother's arms. Isabella's heart sank, and tears flowed out of her as she clasped the tiny baby in her shaking arms. She was perfect. She was beautiful. She was loved. But perhaps only by Isabella. This innocent baby's crime was simply that she was born the wrong sex. And both she and Isabella would pay greatly for it. Welcome to the Season 5 premiere of The West London Witch. After an adventurous and restorative summer, it is a joy to be back in your ears, bringing you spooky stories from across the globe. It is absolutely wild and surreal to me that since 2020, the West London Witch team has been filling your podcast feed with terrifying tales created and produced at the highest studio quality. And by team, I mean me and my buddy Danny. We do this work totally for free because we love it. We're proud of our content and appreciate the wonderful interactions we get to have with storytellers and listeners just like yourself. If you're enjoying The West London Witch, maybe consider joining our Patreon. It's a way to further engage with us and show your support for two creatives. If you're in a position to spare enough each month for us to grab a cup of coffee in between edits or add to the piggy bank for a new microphone, we would love to see you in our Patreon community. But I know times are tough, so if you're not in a position to join Patreon right now, that's okay. We aren't going anywhere. Head on over to patreon.com/The West London Witch. For as little as £1, $1, €1 a month, you can gain full access to our coven, a space where we share behind-the-scenes stories, dive deeper into each episode, answer your questions, and have special little treats to thank you for sharing your love and kindness with your favorite little witch. Hello and welcome to episode 76 of The West London Witch, a podcast where we share stories about those moments where we find ourselves very much not alone. Today, we are headed to the rugged coast of Northern Ireland and at the shores of the Irish Sea with Ashlie, a paranormal researcher and the star of The Ghost Story Girl, a popular paranormal research and travel account on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. Ashlie is dedicated to uncovering the background and truth that surround ghost stories and haunted locations. Today, we are ascending to the high tower of Ballygally Castle for a startling confrontation between fact and fable. Pour yourself a dram of Irish whiskey and curl up in a woolen throw as we travel to the lush and dramatic shores of Ulster, Northern Ireland. I'm Rebecca Strazina, and this is The West London Witch, episode 76, Ballygally Castle.
So in July of 2024, my wife and I decided to take a trip to Ireland. And of course, the first thing I did was look up the most haunted things in Ireland. And one of them that popped up was Ballygally Castle, all the way in Northern Ireland on the Antrim coast. Of course, I had to book a room. Of course, I had to find at least one of the most haunted ones. And we did. The hotel is newer, but it is attached to the 17th century castle. So you can book castle rooms or you can book in the regular hotel, which is a really lovely wedding venue as well. Right on the coast, the beach is right across the street. You can hear the waves crashing up on the shore. Quaint little Irish beach town. It's lovely there.
Ashlie was desperate to find a castle that she could do an overnight investigation in, and Ballygally fit the bill to perfection. It was not only rich in history and reported hauntings, but it was also comfortable and lush, a blessed relief for Tatiana, Ashley's wife, who has been dragged from one dark and dingy haunted location to the next. Ballygally struck the perfect balance between work and pleasure. However, the real call for Ashlie, of course, was the haunted lore connected to the castle. Ballygally has a long history of mysterious knocking sounds, disembodied footsteps, the thick and heady scent of musty vanilla. Eerie sounds of children laughing and playing fill the empty halls and bedrooms. And guests and workers alike have reported being tugged and pushed and pulled by tiny hands. The hotel even has spooky names for some of the rooms, such as the Dungeon Room, the Ghost Room, and the famous Turret Room.
And on their website, they advertised the legend of Isabella Shaw, Lady Isabella Shaw, who still haunts the turret room in the castle. So that's why I really wanted to go there.
The legend of Isabella Shaw is like a chapter from a fairy story. A grim fairy tale, that is. There are many iterations of the story, but they all followed the same premise. However, before we can dive into the legend, we need to cover the history that we know to be true.
James and Isabella were originally from Scotland. They went over to Northern Ireland in 1606 at the behest of King James I of England. They were Protestant Scottish people, and they went over to establish communities there for England, basically, and to keep an eye on the Irish in that area. That particular area was known to be very rebellious against any kind of British dominance. So they especially wanted families to settle the land to keep an eye on them. Hence the residence and defensive part of the castle. So they both went over, and Isabella was from a noble family as well, a very rich noble lineage, the Brisbanes.
The Shaws built Ballygally Castle in or around 1625. And although it was their family home, it was also a site of true terror and sadness. During the 1641 Irish Rebellion, the home was a sanctuary for those trying to hide or escape from the Irish resistance. One particularly heartbreaking story is that of the Jameson children. John Jameson sent his 3 children to retrieve a bundle of corn from a barn about 3/4 of a mile away from the family home. While heading to the barn, the children, Robert, Henry, and Isabel, were hunted down by 6 Irishmen on horseback. They captured the children, and poor Isabel and Robert watched as the men hanged their brother over a bridge. Robert escaped down the stream to freedom, but Isabel was maintained as a hostage. She was kept with another little boy named William Hunter. Poor William was subsequently killed as he was violently drowned as pikes, or long spears, held him underwater. After her release, Isabel headed to Ballygally, like so many other women and children, in the hope of refuge and shelter. She officially testified to this experience in 1653. However devastating this tale may be, it was sadly not unique. Ulster was a hugely contentious and rebellious location, and atrocities like these were commonplace. The castle would have witnessed a litany of traumas throughout its history. However, it is the story of Lady Isabella Shaw that has remained at the forefront of the lore of the castle. And that story is not as easily verified as that of the Jameson children. Like all good ghost stories or legends, there are several different versions, but they all start the same. After the much-awaited and anticipated birth of Lord and Lady Shaw's first child, Lady Isabella Shaw found herself out of favor with her wrathful husband. Lord James Shaw was most displeased and enraged by Lady Isabella's lack of ability to produce a male heir. The arrival of the precious baby girl was so upsetting for James that he took the newborn away and locked Lady Isabella in the top turret room as punishment. Lady Isabella was left to rot in her despair. Starved, frozen, and alone, Lady Isabella was tortured by the separation from her baby girl. The cries of the baby haunted Lady Isabella, and in a fit of desperation or perhaps madness, she either fell from the turret trying to escape or jumped for a more permanent form of release. Other versions allege that Lady Isabella died trying to escape the turret so she could reunite with her lover, a sailor who was awaiting for her at the bottom of the tower. No matter what version you subscribe to, the lasting effects are not disputed. To this day, Lady Isabella is reported to haunt Ballygally on the eternal search for her baby girl. She's still there, wandering the halls, crying, wailing, mourning her loss. She's heard knocking on doors and walls, and guests have reported waking up in the night and seeing Lady Isabella at the foot of their beds, watching over them. The imposing turret of Ballygally now stands as an immortal reminder of Lady Isabella's imprisonment and strife.
So we checked in. We had booked the original castle rooms. So we're staying in the original castle built in 1625 by James Shaw and Lady Isabella Shaw. There's about 4 floors of rooms. There are no elevators. So we definitely dragged all of our luggage that we had for the entire week up 3 or 4 flights of stairs. And we made it to our room. And as soon as we open the door, the first thing I see are those original wood beams going across the ceiling. And I'm just immediately in heaven. So after we settle in, we did make a reservation at the restaurant there. It's called the Garden Restaurant. Very charming restaurant. added on to the back of the original castle. And we ate there. And then we went back to our room and kind of got ready for the investigation. Initially, I went alone at first. So I headed up there around 10:20, 10:30, put out a Mel meter, which basically detects electromagnetic frequencies and also has the capability of turning into a REM pod, which a REM pod can create its own little electromagnetic field around an antenna. Anything that breaks that field will make it beep. So I had the Mel meter. I didn't turn on the flashlight yet. In ghost hunting, they like to use flashlights, putting them in a loosely connected state. And possibly a spirit could interact with the flashlight by touching it or providing energy for the connection to take place, and the flashlight will light up. I didn't bring that out yet, but I brought a laser grid, which has these green little dots all over the room, making it look like a paranormal rave party, kind of. It allows you to see any shadows passing by, maybe out of the corner of your eye. It just kind of aids you in that way. Plus, it looks really cool. So I head up this winding rock staircase, solid rock staircase up to the room. Once you get high up into that turret area, there's a rope along the wall that you kind of have to pull yourself up on. So like when you're pulling on it, it makes those creaks from the rope, which just provides an extra aesthetic that is spooky. And I'm up there for about 10 minutes. Everything is quiet. I forgot to mention I also put cat balls out. Cat balls are what they sound like. They are the cat toys that cats play with. They are triggered by motion. They light up when they're triggered by any kind of motion. So I'm up there for about 10 minutes and it's all quiet. Nothing's lighting up, no noises. I'm asking questions. Is Lady Isabella Shaw here? I introduce myself. I'm Ashlie. I'd really like to talk to you and hear your story. Can you tell me what happened here? Just silent. I didn't feel anything either at that time. Just kind of nothing, just kind of like nothing was there. And then all of a sudden, my Mel meter starts to beep like ferociously, all the way in the red, just like consistent beeping. And I go over and I pick it up and I see that the battery indicator light is on. So it's dying. That's why it's doing that. I turn it off. I turn it on again. And it's just completely dead.
Startled and confused, Ashlie headed back to her hotel room to change the batteries and put in another set of fresh AA's. Whilst down in the room, Ashlie asked Tatiana if she'd like to come up and join in on the investigation.
So she goes back up with me, and I set up a little bit more equipment, so including the flashlight now, as well as the fresh Mel meter, the laser grid, and the cat balls. My wife starts asking questions as I'm finishing setting up. As she's asking, introducing herself and asking, is anyone here that would like to talk? We're here to talk to you. We want to know your story.
Are you here?
The cat ball sitting on a chair in the corner by the bed below a window lights up on its own. And that got her attention. And she was like, babe, look.
Babe.
So I turn around and look. And it was lighting up.
So you're here.
And after it stopped, my wife continued to ask questions, just so they could indicate that if someone was really here with us, please light something up again.
I've heard you still in here looking for your daughter.
And the cat ball lit up again, immediately after that question. No one was near it, just lit up, sitting on that chair. So we're like, okay, we know you're here. We know it's you. That kind of initiated the conversation.
We heard your story about your daughter and your husband, that he locked you here. Is that true? Does that really happen, that you had a girl and your husband wasn't happy and he locked you here to die and took your girl from you? Do you want to touch something again? Yes, it's true. Yes. See, we hear you. We can talk to you now. Is it true that you jumped out through the window? Is it that that window over there? I put another...
Yes. So we'll use the flashlight to communicate yes. Okay, great.
Can you turn that one more time on so we can see it's you? That's for yes. Can you turn the flashlight on? Can you do it one more time? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we know it's you.
So now we've got three different forms if you include the cat ball, of tech interaction during our questioning, which got my attention immediately because I'm pretty skeptical, honestly, going into these things. Though we start questioning some more, I'm thinking, is there a rogue radio wave coming through the window? Like, these are 5-foot thick castle walls, but there are tiny windows. Kind of strange, maybe something's setting it off. But the responses we got to our questions were pretty incredible. I mean, down to like almost a Morse code type beeping when we asked specific questions.
So is it true that you jumped through the window because you wanted to see your daughter again?
No, it's not true.
Oh, nice.
Oh, it's not true. Thank you. So it's not... Okay, thank you. It's not true that you wanted to see your daughter again and you jumped through the window. You let us know that. Thank you.
Did you die in this room? No, you didn't. Did you fall through the window and died downstairs on the floor?
No. Is this Isabella that we're talking to? If it's Isabella, please light something up again.
Or make a sound. Okay. So it's
Thank
Isabella. Is it true that you had a baby girl? Is that true? Light up something. Okay.
Yes?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And is it true that your husband did not like that you had a girl? Okay, your husband wanted a boy. Is that correct? He wanted a boy? Your husband's James Shaw? Were you married to James Shaw? You want to light something again? Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
As we're questioning and this is happening, the vibe in the room gets very sad. And my wife felt it too. It just gets increasingly like sad and hopeless compared to when I initially went up there before and I couldn't really feel anything. So I ask,
Are you sad here? Are you sad where you are? You're so sad about everything that happened. Are you stuck here?
You are. Okay.
You're stuck here. Oh my god, I got goosebumps.
I have chills too. And you want to leave. You want to leave this place.
Yeah.
This response had a profound effect on Ashlie and Tatiana. They were covered in goosebumps, and they truly felt sorry for whoever they were interacting with.
it was just pretty incredible that seemingly something did happen to where some Zod spirit is seemingly stuck there or can't seem to move on or doesn't want to move on from whatever happened.
However, something about this investigation did not sit right with Ashlie.
But due to the responses from our questioning, something wasn't really adding up with the story we were told about her jumping out of a window or falling out of a window to return to her daughter who had been taken away from her because her husband was upset that she did not produce a male heir. So that prompted a deep dive into all of the history of Ballygally Castle.
Ashlie hit the books hard. Once she was back in the US, she dove straight into the archives in an attempt to verify the history on the hotel's website. She located the Ulster Journal of Archaeology and made a clear family tree of the Shaws and their descendants, which led her to a few issues that she in turn took to a local Ulster genealogist to confirm. You see, the story stated that Lady Isabella was imprisoned after her failure to produce a male heir. But not only did she have a boy, she in fact had 3: James Brisbane of Brisbane, Captain John Shaw, and William Shaw. In addition to the 3 boys, the couple also had a little girl, Jane. All 3 children lived into adulthood, married, and had children of their own. But that wasn't the only inconsistency Ashlie uncovered.
The story is that after Isabella jumped out the window, James married her sister, Elizabeth. So I thought, okay, I will try to find a sister of Elizabeth Brisbane named Isabella, just to start with. I looked up the Brisbane lineage, which is a very long lineage, and I could not find any sisters by the name of Isabella. She was the only one. So I was like, this is so odd, but this is definitely the Isabella Brisbane that married James Shaw. So that's when I reached out to the Irish genealogist who kind of helped me confirm, like, oh, so many Scots went over to Northern Ireland in the early 1600s that their lines and their names get crossed all the time. But basically, what he confirmed is Elizabeth and Isabella were the same person. Even if you spell it out on paper, the name Elizabeth and Isabel, if you just move some letters around, they spell kind of the same name. It's Isabel is the Scots version, and Elizabeth is the version for English. So that's why you'll see Elizabeth on the denization records for when she came over, and you'll see Isabel in her Scottish lineage.
Lady Isabella and Elizabeth are the same person, the same and only wife of James Shaw. He did not remarry after Isabella's supposed death, which we can confirm did not happen after the birth of a child, as she is reported to have died of natural causes in her 50s.
So that was pretty incredible. Now, that's not to say that in 1600s Protestant Scotland, Isabella didn't do something that possibly upset her husband to the point where he did lock her in the room for a period of time or mistreated her at some point. People would say, oh, but Isabella Shaw was a rich lady. You know, she came from a noble line. He wouldn't do that to her. But in Protestantism, the man is the head of the household. The woman's job is to be subservient to her husband and serve. And that includes, producing a male heir to continue the line.
It is clear that although Lady Isabella could have suffered at the hands of her husband, she definitely did not die the way the story espouses she did. So, where did this tale come from?
Now, the whole story of her being locked in there because she was looking for her daughter and her daughter was taken away from her and she jumped out the window actually came from a medium who visited the hotel with a reporter who was featured on Good Morning Ulster. The reporter went with this medium for a Halloween special to the ghost room. And during a session there, the medium said she started to feel very hot, like a 10-degree increase in temperature. And she immediately started to smell this kind of old musty vanilla smell that kind of encapsulated her in the room. And she felt like it was a blanket of smell on her that was kind of being absorbed in her hair. And she started to see the face of a woman, and a woman in panic in that room, running towards the window, and she seemed to be looking for her daughter. This is what the medium was feeling. And she was also looking out the window for a man named Robert, which they thought perhaps was a sailor she had had an affair with, and she was waiting for him to come back, looking through that window to come save her from that room that she was locked in for whatever reason. And this is kind of where the whole story of her panicking, being upset about her daughter being taken away and jumping out the window came from, was that session with the medium. Now, I think it played in quite nicely with the traditional trope of Scottish folklore, like the woman locked in the castle being mistreated at the hands of a powerful man type story. I mean, that is prevalent across, you find that in every castle in Scotland. So I think it kind of made its way over to Ballygally and infiltrated this story in particular.
It is undeniable that there is activity at Ballygally Castle. Ashley's own evidence affirms that. But it does not fit the story being touted by the hotel. So who or what is haunting Ballygally?
When I asked, is this Lady Isabella Shaw, I did get a positive response. It didn't seem childlike. There have been reports from people of small hands kind of tugging at them in the night. And then when they wake up out of their beds, they hear children laughing or running down the hallway. So there are reports of children and spirits. I didn't know that at the time. It didn't seem playful. It seemed very hopeless and sad. And I think quite possibly it could be the spirit of Lady Isabella Shaw. If not her, maybe another woman who was locked up there for some reason. So I do feel like there's a woman present. She is sad and upset for some reason up there. And who knows, James could have locked another woman or possibly Isabella up there for any reason if he was unhappy for quite a period of time, possibly starving them or, they're up there isolated and alone. It takes quite a mental toll on someone and leaves an impression. The entire castle is limestone as well. So this is a theory about limestone holding all that energy. There's also a stream running directly through the castle, which helped during the Irish Rebellion in 1641. So they've got this entire water source to themselves, fresh water source, which people say running water specifically, provides a certain form of energy from the land. So you've got kind of the perfect cocktail for a haunting. Either way, I don't discount that there is something there. I do think something is there, which entering into it, I'm always, again, highly skeptical of these things. I'm like, yeah, right, nothing's going to happen. And we got pretty incredible evidence, whether it is Lady Isabella Shaw or not. And I do actually believe it was Lady Isabella Shaw. It's just, I would hate to drag a good man's name through the mud and slander him just to make a buck off of, a venue. It kind of seems a little wrong. But maybe he did, who knows? It's just, I don't know why we can't just keep the history, keep to the true history of the story, because it's actually much more fascinating than a made up legend, because it supports factual evidence. Like, there is something going on here. This is real. Let's not minimize it by getting the story wrong.
I think local historian and genealogist Chris West stated it best when he told Ashlie, "I'm pretty sure the hotel just made up the story. I've never seen a reference to that legend outside their literature. If you read old newspaper reports, they used to talk about a ghost called Madam Nixon, who went around knocking on doors, but they must have decided that that wasn't grisly enough. It seems a shame to me that they would make up such a terrible story about the man who built the beautiful castle they are making money out of." The genealogist had never heard of this legend about Lady Isabella. and was stunned by the historical inaccuracies of it. But that is the beauty of the internet. It's made the world much smaller and a whole lot more accessible. And for what it's worth, sometimes it can help us solve mysteries and let the truth shine forth. Do you have a spooky story you'd like to share? I'd love to hear it. Drop me an email at thewestlondonwitch@gmail.com or find us on Instagram and Facebook at The West London Witch. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. And come and follow us for additional content on Instagram and Facebook. Until next time, merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. The West London Witch is created by me, Rebecca Strazina. Our sound designer and production magician is the incredible Danny Cross. Our theme music was bespokely written and performed by the wickedly talented Kyle Hall. Our cover art is the beautiful collaboration between Lizzie Wilson and Jake Bowser. Special thanks to Miss Sinead Bowers, our quality control and biggest cheerleader. And thank you to you, all of our listeners all over the world. These are your stories. Thank you for sharing them with us.